We have with us online Mr. Faheem Sardar, who's an economist. Thank you, Faheem, for joining us.
Thank you.
Now let's get a bit into what was just revealed in the economic survey. Naturally, Pakistan was on target and doing very well as far as the economic indicators were concerned. Current account deficits, the trade deficit, the exports versus imports balance, trade balance was improving a great deal. And suddenly we were derailed by the coronavirus pandemic, and then we've seen everything kind of slide backwards and start to shrink our economy. So your comments on this, Faheem?
Thank you for having me. Firstly, I think Pakistan was, as you said, we were on track to build things up again. And I think it was in March when this corona effect started taking place, our exports started going down. And this is a global pandemic. It's not a regional or Pakistan-specific pandemic. We have faced a massive economic loss due to this, but every country has faced it. The question is how quickly we can bounce back from this. Because we are a resilient nation, we are able to do many things under a lot of pressure. It is important for us to be very clear how we're going to now push forward in the right direction, because Corona is here to stay, of course. We have to not live with it, but we have to also make sure that our economy starts to spin again in the right direction.
Right, absolutely. And now some of the main problems that we are facing in Pakistan is that as of the last just couple of months with the pandemic, our exports have started to shrink, and imports have also shrunk, but not to not at the same rate as the exports. So again, we're facing a trade imbalance again. However, the government does expect, with the measures that they're going to take going forward, that this balance should be able to come back on track. But nobody can really predict when things are going to actually come back to normal vis-a-vis the economy, because the entire world, like you said, is going through this recession, and we're seeing job losses everywhere, etc. So the unique challenges that Pakistan has to face, where do you see those, and how can we overcome them?
I think it's a very important question. I think the answer is equally important. The World Bank recently said that this the economic effect of this COVID has been the worst in 150 years, that any effect that they've observed. Now, this just goes to show to what depth this virus has been able to infiltrate and stop economic activity. Why does it stop economic activity? It stops economic activity because we stop interacting. So it has had a huge impact on all economies. What we need to do right now is it's very difficult to calculate what's going to happen. It's very difficult to calculate what the effect will be, and inshallah, we pray that we will be becoming immune to this eventually in due course, just like we became immune to the flu. But the economy of Pakistan needs to be obviously restarted. We need to start working again. We all need to start doing our activities again. Exports. The government did everything that it could. The government gave back the refund. The government basically helped exporters send their products abroad. And actually exports started to go up. And that's just one example of what the government was trying to do. It just remains to be seen how long this sluggish activity will persist because of this COVID thing.
Right. For example, Faheem, our exports, like you were just saying, they shrunk between March and April 2020 from about an $857 million loss. And this is in knitwear, bedwear, garments, cotton cloth. This is textiles, particularly took a big hit. and the only positive, export that didn't decline but increased was rice. Now, these are some of the problems that we're facing, and in the months ahead, this is the textile industry, for example. It has millions of jobs attached to it, and people becoming jobless, it has its whole impact, which kind of it kind of has a snowballing effect that the jobless people can't pay their taxes, and then you have less tax collection, and everything sort of gets impacted by this.
Very true. You see, textile has always been a backbone of our economy, and currently we're debating cross-section to our exports, and we have to diversify our exports as much as we possibly can. It is in our interest, it will always be in our interest to have more things to sell to other countries. Now, if you have more things to sell, you have more heads, and then if one thing goes down, the other goes up. Like you pointed out regarding rice, textiles went down, but rice it was doing pretty well. So at the end of the day, what we need to do is, I think this is an opportunity for us to think, for us to sort of reevaluate, for us to perhaps replan many of the things. Because since the economies are slowed down, so the race has stopped as to who is going to export more, who has the highest GDP growth rate or whatever. So I think perhaps this is an opportunity to replan, a good time to replan, so to speak.
Right, and tax collection has decreased about 30% as well. So just, the fiscal budget for the next year right there has shrunk to a great extent, and due to that there will be less expenditure available for development projects, etc.
If you have less tax, we have a gap. To our target was close to 4.9 trillion, and we collect 4.8, 4.9 trillion, and collected close to 3.9 trillion. So there is a gap. But if you don't have tax, you cannot spend, and if you can spend, you cannot. So it is important for us to be able to tax things in a sustainable and healthy manner. I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, that this is a good opportunity for us to perhaps revisit and replan many of the things that we're doing, because I think there's no harm in revisiting how we structure things. We can spread the tax net further across the country, lower the tax rates, and that's how it should be. That basically increases economic activity. Exports,
right.
Taxation, structural hemorrhage, we need to just focus on those things. Inshallah, it will work out.
Right. Faheem, please stay with us online. We've also got with us Dr. Farida Faisal, who's an economist. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Farida.
Thank you, Sharmeen.
We were just talking about the economic survey that was just unveiled, and then the upcoming challenges that we face. And the economy's performance in the last 1 year, a lot of targets were met. However, then there was this unprecedented global pandemic, and we were just talking about how we can come up with new and innovative ways to help the unique problems that Pakistan is facing at this time. Your input on this, please, Dr. Farida.
Sharmeen, actually, it's unfortunate, but most of the economic targets were actually missed. None of the targets were really met, but yes, performance in some sectors can be seen as a silver lining. For example, I'd say that the growth in agriculture, which was not 3.5% as targeted, but 2.5%, still, because majority of the Pakistan's population is employed in this sector, I would say at least 40% directly and 60% some people say indirectly. So that is why growth in agriculture sector is a silver lining. Now, how to move forward? Now, this is a very, very difficult scenario, and really the next budget is a survival budget. So within this budget, I think the areas in which the government has some kind of fiscal space, it is created because the international financial institutions like IMF, etc., have rescheduled some of our loans. We have also been given aid in order to fight this COVID problem. So as long as those funds are being utilized well, and that again is a good area in which I think cash transfers and SR's program, that is one area in which the government has performed well. So let us hope that in future also we see an improvement in governance overall, because that is the only way that we are going to survive this difficult time.
Right. Also, Dr. Farida, now we were just speaking with our other guest, Faheem Sardar, that the resource base has been shrinking due to job losses. Our tax base has shrunk. And on top of that, there's increasing pressure on expenditure for healthcare and the businesses that have gone down, helping those out and then helping out the poor during this pandemic and industry as well. So it's really some monumental challenges that we've had to face. How do we overcome these now going forward?
No doubt. I think again, yes, the issues are really severe, and I think the government also realizes that it has to walk a very tightrope now, because you see what happened in the last year. Then again, somewhere an area in which I would like to appreciate the economic managers is that some kind of fiscal discipline is now restored. Current account deficit, for example, is brought into control, which means that basically exports and imports are kind of rationalized. Similarly, we have rationalized our currency as well, you see, by not having an exchange rate which is market-based. So that's good. It was a difficult step, but the government took it. Now, going forward again, I think that the government will have to borrow. The deficit will definitely go up, but it depends what kind of stimulus packages are designed for the different industries and how effectively the transfers take place. That will then determine whether the impact of this budget will have an impact at all, or whether it is, just going to be another document with all the targets being missed next year as well. So again, remember, it is not how the budget looks on paper, but what it actually delivers that is going to matter. Whether the funds being allocated are being used judiciously, effectively, that is what is going to matter.
Right. Okay, coming back to you now, Farida, Dr. Farida, please stay with us. Coming back to you now, Faheem, I'd like to ask you now, like you were talking earlier about diversifying in our exports and all, what potential do you see there is in diversification, for example, say in IT, information technology, and we've seen some changing trends during this pandemic towards e-commerce, etc., and apparently that has grown in Pakistan about 26%. What is your input on this?
IT was, is, and always will be important for Pakistan, and Pakistan has been always doing very well in services. Now, IT has grown tremendously in the past few years, and we were expecting to see more continuity in that growth. IT, look, exports, and sometimes I fail to understand why it becomes such a big complex issue, because exports is something that you get, exports is something you sell to another country, something that you serve in another country. So it's not that difficult. We're on that path. We just need to increase the cross-section of it. IT is one of the things. Food in regional areas. We're not exporting that much food in regional areas. We're not. I mean, that's a very low-hanging fruit. We just need to sort out some certain international certifications, and then we can just accelerate what we're doing. But you see, grabbing that kind of business which helps you earn more money, such as you mentioned IT, they will always remain important, and we just need to, and I think we already are pushing pretty hard on that front. I believe one of the targets of the software export board was to have exports of $5 billion throughout the world. So I mean, we're working on that front, but I mean, suddenly you have COVID and everything has just paused. So that is not something which has, no country has been spared, to be very frank, but that does not justify, that does not allow, it should not allow anybody to take things easy. We just need to, increase the cross-section of our exports, and we need to start pushing all the sectors, not just one or two specifically.
Right. Dr. Farida, coming back to you now, how can we improve and further diversify on our agriculture, for example? We've also faced locust attacks this year, and there have also been a lot of climate change challenges which have had an impact on our agriculture. So what can we do to further improve, for example, overcome, like in terms of diversifying what we export, in terms of agriculture, that industry?
I think that agriculture is not only important in terms of exports. The most important thing during this time of COVID is to be able to feed your population and provide within the country the edible products, both which are the fresh products as well as which are the staples, at reasonable prices so that people can afford them. That should be the focus of why we want to bring about, an increase in the agricultural base. So to be able to be self-reliant. Remember, that's the first important part. And in order to do that, I think a good out-of-the-box solution would be to manage our water resources better. You see, yes, in terms of control of pests, I think the government has done well, given its limited resources. It has done well. But the utilization of water resources is extremely important, and in that case, the construction industry, at the same time, it needs to now go towards the construction of dams, etc., so that the dams are constructed. That area again, you will see growth, and at the same time, that would be used for agriculture. At the same time, you can, but that's then a long-term prospect of having climate-resistant varieties of different staples. But at the moment, I think again that instead of focusing on exports of the agricultural products, we should be focusing on the availability at affordable rate within Pakistan. That should be the first priority within this coming year.
Right. Okay, Faheem, coming back to you now. What areas do you think would be important as far as, this is also what the committee yesterday, the National Economic Council discussed, that they're going to be focusing on those sectors which promise job opportunities for the youth. Which ones do you think are going to be areas where job opportunities can be created for the youth?
That's a tough one. I think immediately what the government might like to look at is to start service businesses, because those tend to consume a lot of human capital, and they tend to engage a lot of human capital. In the medium to long term, I mean, we have to industrialize. Pakistan has to accelerate its industrialization as much as possible, and with CPEC and everything, we should be one of the fastest industrializing countries on earth right now, as we were in the 60s. And then it's important for us to keep pushing for bigger businesses where more people are employed. I want to expand a little bit on services. Services will always remain important, and Pakistan has traditionally done very well in being a service provider. And that has helped the economy, and I can off the bat, I can say that in the past 10 years, I think in 6 years, the service industry has contributed very well to the Pakistan economic construct. Going forward, I think the government should focus on services and obviously industries, and preferably domestic consumption. We need to build up our businesses internally as well a little bit more. That makes you more able and more strong to become a viable exporter of the same product.
Right. Also, Dr. Farida, now we were talking earlier about food security. About 58% of Pakistan, according to studies, is food insecure, according to Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, actually. And then 39.6% of our population is in the poverty cycle. You also mentioned the SAS program. Now, there's also focus on sustainable development goals for Pakistan in order to bring people out of that poverty cycle cycle and to provide them with clean drinking water and sanitation and proper health care, etc. So, in your opinion, what sort of programs in the SR's program can be utilized towards this, and what better way can we enhance these?
Shameen, you see, SR's program is a cash transfer program, right? So it resolves only part of the problem. Maybe currently, because of the lockdown, you see the unemployment level, it is reaching up to 30%, and that hurts the vulnerable the most. So in order to overcome this problem or crisis in the short run, maybe cash transfer can work. But in the long run, we have to create jobs and sustainable livelihoods for these people. And for that purpose, it is very important to concentrate on the productivity of the agricultural sector. I think one point I forgot to make about the agricultural productivity and agricultural, the enhancement of this sector overall is the agricultural market. So the market reforms in agriculture have to be made. Storage, for example, has to be created. Commodity market has to be created so that agriculture is taken as a business. Livestock is a very, very important part of agriculture. That again needs to be focused more. And in order to finance all this, you have already microfinance, but other kind of financial instruments are required. So if this keeps going, then I think it is possible that these people can have sustainable livelihoods, and only through that process we can overcome this hunger issue. But more than that, education, health, these are the areas in which the government will have to not only invest more, but make sure that that investment is being utilized well through the reform of its institutions.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on our program, Dr. Farida Faisal. And coming back to you for your final remarks, Faheem, how do you think now going forward, what do you think are the most urgent steps that are needed to be taken for Pakistan to come out of the shrinking economy and to get back on its feet?
I think the first thing we need to do is the government and the public collectively need to focus on psychology. We need to really change our way of thinking. I've noticed that the public is becoming very negative, and we're partly to blame because all we do is talk about negative things. I'll give examples as well. If we have crossed 100,000 cases in COVID cases, we also know that 98% of them recover, and we also know that we're close to 40,000 recoveries. So basically, we need to look at the facts and the larger picture. Secondly, the government needs to restart all the major businesses as soon as possible with all due safety. Now, thirdly, exports are going to be slow, so now is the time to look for new markets. Now is the time to access regional markets. We have not focused on regional markets as aggressively as I would have liked to, but there's an opportunity for us. Logistics is there, food is there. We can provide plastics. I mean, these are very small things that we can just accelerate. Going forward, I'll repeat that services and industries are two things that the government will have to focus on. But I go back to my first point, which is psychology, that we all need to each other. We need to be a little more positive. And it's not just us who's facing COVID, everyone's facing it. And we just need to look at the facts so that we look at the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right, thank you.